Welcome back. In the previous video, we created a base item class, and all that item class has is an item mesh, which is a skeletal mesh component, and a collision box, which is a U-box component. We haven't even created a blueprint based on this because we're planning on using this as a parent class for other items, such as a weapon. In this video, we'll actually be creating that weapon class. So let's do so now. Here in C++ classes / the shooter folder, right-click, choose New C++ class, and click the checkbox for Show All Classes. We're going to search for the item class and select that. You can see that item here is derived from actor, and we're going to derive our new class from item. Click Next, and we're going to name this weapon. Go ahead and click Create Class. So here we have Visual Studio, and we get this pop-up saying File Modification Detected. It's saying that this project has been modified from outside the environment. Sometimes you'll get this pop-up when creating a new class from Unreal Engine, and that's okay. All you need to do is click Reload All, and everything will be reloaded. Now we have our weapon.h file, and of course weapon.cpp is here as well. So that looks good. Now we'd like to go in our editor, and we're going to create a blueprint based on weapon. Now let's keep this organized. We're going to create a new folder in _game. So right click, new folder, and I'm going to call this weapons. In weapons, I'm going to right click, create a new folder, and call this base weapon. We're going to put our weapon blueprint in base weapon. So we can go back to the shooter folder, right click on weapon, and create blueprint class based on weapon. Click the drop down for weapons, select base weapon, and we'll call this base weapon BP. Click create blueprint class, and now we have our base weapon blueprint. Now we have our item mesh, that's the skeletal mesh component that is the root, and attached to that is the collision box that we created, which we can see here in the viewport. Now select item mesh. A skeletal mesh component has a property of type skeletal mesh, which we can choose here. So what are we going to choose? Well, if we go to our Paragon Lieutenant Bellica folder and go to Characters, Heroes, Bellica, Meshes, and we take our Bellica skeletal mesh and double click on it, we'll see here the skeletal mesh has several parts to it, including a weapon here. So the weapon that came with Bellica is part of her skeletal mesh. The body and the weapon are all one skeletal mesh asset. Now, what I'm going to show you in this course is how you can use part of a mesh while setting the rest of the mesh to be transparent. Now, ideally, what you would want to do is export this mesh and import it into a 3D modeling software package like Maya or Blender and remove the body and leave only the guns. Now, I've done this for you so that you can have a skeletal mesh that's just Bellica's gun. However, if you don't have those 3D modeling skills and in the future you want to use some other mesh, I'm going to show you how you can make the body transparent and still use the gun. Now, feel free to skip that part if you just want to use the gun asset. Now, to get the gun asset, use the link in the resources for this lecture, which will take you here to the Unreal Engine CPP Shooter Series page on the DruidMech GitHub, and in assets/meshes, you're going to download smg and pistol.zip. Download and extract that, and then you can import it into your project. Now, once you've extracted it, you will have an SMG and pistol folder, and inside of that will be bellicaguns.fbx. This is the skeletal mesh that has just the gun and not the body for Bellica. So in the _game folder, we're going to right click, create a new folder, call this Bellica Guns, and in Bellica Guns, you can click Add Import and go to Import Asset and find the location on your machine where you downloaded and extracted that Bellica Guns FBX file. Go ahead and import that. And you can go ahead and leave all these settings as the default. Make sure skeletal mesh and import mesh are both checked and click import all. You'll get this warning for no smoothing groups. That's fine. You can close that. And now we have the Bellica Guns mesh. Now go ahead and open Bellica Guns. And here we have just the weapon. Now in the asset details for the material, click the drop down and search for Bellica_Guns and select Bellica Guns. And now we have the proper material for this. So this is the proper way to do it, by using a skeletal mesh that only has the gun and not the body. Now in this course, I'm going to show you how you can use the Bellica asset just to show you a way to get around having to use a 3D modeling software package, but I'm also providing you with the gun that you can use for optimal performance. So if you use this skeletal mesh with just the gun throughout the course, you will be fine. All of the development and coding will be the same. Now, we're going to use several different types of weapons in this course, but I do want to use this gun that came with Bellica. So how can we get away with using that gun? You'll notice here in the asset details that we have material slots. These are a bunch of different materials for different parts of the skeletal mesh. Now take a look at element 4. This is the fourth one. It says Bellica Guns. That's the material for the guns. All of the other materials apply to the rest of Bellica. So if we could set all these materials to something transparent, then we wouldn't see the rest of the mesh. Now ideally, in a game project, you're going to want your artist to provide you with a mesh that is just the weapon. But in our case, since we want to use this weapon, and we don't want to have to manipulate this mesh in an outside program, we can use this basic hack by setting all the other materials to transparent and only showing the weapon. Now, we don't want to change the Bellica asset. We want to duplicate it by right-clicking and choosing Duplicate. And we're going to call the duplicate Bellica_Guns. And we're going to create a material that's transparent so we can set the rest of Bellica to transparent so we can only see the gun. So scroll up to our _game folder, right click and create a new folder and call this materials. In the materials folder, right click, create a new folder and call this Bellica Materials. In Bellica Materials, right-click and create a new material and call this transparent. This will be our transparent material. Open it up. And here in the details panel, we're going to go down to the blend mode and it's set to opaque. But if we click this and set it to translucent, now we have a material that's capable of being translucent. You can see through it. Now, we can create a scalar value by holding the 1 key and pressing. Now we can drag this into opacity. This controls the translucency of the material as the tooltip suggests. What this does is it results in a material that is purely translucent. It has no color information. It's completely see-through. Go ahead and save this material. Now you can see in the little viewport here that the material is completely see-through. There is nothing there. That's exactly what we want. Now we can go back and we can find our Bellica Guns mesh. It was in Bellica/meshes. Now I'd like to create a folder where we put our meshes. And let's put that in the weapons folder. So for weapons, right click on it, click new folder, and call this meshes. Now once again, find the Bellica Guns asset in the meshes folder and drag this over to our _game/weapons/meshes folder and select Move Here. Now it's in our Meshes folder in the Weapons folder. Go to it and open it. Make sure you're not in the actual Bellica mesh. I'm going to close that out. So here in Bellica Guns, we're going to set all these materials to transparent except for in Bellica Guns. So we'll start with element 0. We'll type TRA and C transparent here. We'll do the same for element 1 and all the others. Here's element 2. Here's element 3. We're going to skip element 4 because that's the guns. Here's element 5. Element 6. Here's 7. Here's 8. Here's 9. Here's 10. Here's 11. Here's 12. And 13. And now you'll see here in the viewport that everything is gone except for the gun. Now we can use Bellica Guns as a skeletal mesh, and we'll have her gun without the rest of her body. Now, the rest of her body is there. All those polygons are there, but they're not going to be visible on the screen. Now, ultimately, if you're concerned about additional resources used for that skeletal mesh, then you're going to go through the trouble of either learning an art program or getting an artist to create an asset for you that is just a weapon. Now, we're going to be using assets that are just weapons in this course. We're going to be doing it the proper way. But this is also something I want to show you so that you know how you can get away with using what you have. In this case, we're going to go ahead and use Bellica's gun. And the reason is because this gun has some really interesting properties that we're going to find out very shortly. Okay, click Save and close Bellica Guns. Go ahead and save Transparent and close that as well. Now, here in Base Weapon BP, we're going to select Item Mesh, and for the skeletal mesh, we're going to select Bellica Guns. Now, you'll see that the mesh is outlined here in yellow, and you can actually see that Bellica is still there. The whole thing is here. But if you click on the box and select the box, you'll see that you can only see the gun. And that's all that will be visible in the actual game. Go ahead and click Compile and Save. Now, back in our level, let's open the base weapon folder and drag one of these guns into the world. Drag it up a little bit, and we can go ahead and hit play. And there we have it. There is a gun in the world, and the Bellica mesh is not visible, only the gun. So that concludes this video. We have created a weapon class. We also created a base weapon blueprint, and we set the mesh of that blueprint to the Bellica Guns mesh, which we made by duplicating Bellica and setting all the materials to a transparent material we created, except for the M Bellica Guns, which is element 4 on this weapon. Again, don't worry, we'll be using other weapon assets too, ones that were created without a body mesh attached to them. But this is a way to show you how to work with what assets you have, just in case you're in a situation like this where you want to use the weapon, but you don't want the body attached to it. In the next videos, we're going to create a widget component that will pop up to the screen showing information about the weapon as soon as we look at it. We'll see you in the next video.